Oh my God, I wanted to interrupt you like 5 times during that lesson because those are so fun. And those are things
Tell me
that I
how
would have like,
ridiculous my nails are.
oh my God. Hey, I'm Becca with the Happy Ever Crafter. And in this episode, I'm talking to Maggie from Little Patterns, who is an incredibly talented artist. And she just came out with an amazing coloring book. Today, Maggie's going to show us 3 coloring book hacks, which blew my mind. I have never heard of somebody doing coloring book hacks. It's always just kind of crossed my mind that you would just fill in the blanks in a coloring book and that's that. But this is next level. And even if you're like me and never really got into the coloring book thing, I think you will now because I did. And I can speak from experience. So without further ado, let's just jump right in and chat with Maggie. Maggie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Becca.
I am so excited to have you here because I've been a fan of your work for so long. But before we even talk about any of that, can you just tell people who you are, where you are, all the good things?
Sure. I'm Maggie Enterrios. I'm otherwise known as Little Patterns on the internet, and I'm a commercial illustrator. Most of my work is botanicals, and we're going to talk about this, but I just had a coloring book come out called Flowerscape, which is aptly named because it's all flowers. And yeah, I'm really excited to show it off.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it because honestly, I don't know, maybe I'm like one of the only people, but I never got into that trend of adult coloring books when it was a huge thing the other year.
I honestly didn't either. And I mean, as a creator, like so much of my time, and I know so much of our time is actually like creating. So when it comes to like creative hobbies, it's kind of it's the thing that gets the short end of the stick. Like I find that I rarely have time to do it. But in illustrating the coloring book, I like found how relaxing it was, like in drawing it. And I was like, oh, this is why people color coloring books. Like they
Yeah.
feel the same kind of relaxation.
Well, and truthfully, like I think that if yours had crossed my path when coloring books were a thing, I would have grabbed it because I'm like so drawn to your work and it, no pun intended.
Right.
But I know that you are all about making it like not so much like a color in the lines kind of coloring book. Like you want to make it like a piece of art kind of thing.
Totally. That was like the main point. And all of my work starts as black and white drawings. So when I designed the coloring book, I was like, okay, I'll just draw like I normally draw and then stop. Like I'll stop halfway through. So it's like I think of it like a collaborative project. So I started the work and then you finish the work in whatever medium you work in. So traditional colorists, could do colored pencils, watercolors, all those kind of traditional mediums. But then if you're an ink artist or a botanical illustrator, there's room for you to do things like practice shading and like do like interesting fills or even lettering. There's tons of beautiful negative space spreads that you can do lettering or journaling in. I mean, it's like I just designed it to be like super usable, kind of like make your own scrapbook of creative ideas.
Which I
So
love because like
yeah.
you just said, as artists, we often don't take creative time for ourselves. And like for me, if I was going to sit down and do something fun, it would overwhelm me to do the drawing part. And you've done that for me. So now I can actually like relax and do the fun parts that I want to do. So I love it. So that's
Totally. It was so hard for me too to like not finish the pages. And now that I actually have my copies of the books, I've just been like jumping in there and just trying out every technique that I had planned for the book to see how it looks and how the pages look finished. It's been really fun.
which is exactly what you're going to do in this lesson. So I feel like we should just jump
Yes.
right into it. But before we do, I know that you generously said you would donate and give away a copy of the book.
Yep.
So for anybody watching, the giveaway, like the process to enter is just going to be leave a comment down below and hit like on the video. And then I'll do a random draw of the people in there. There's going to be some terms and conditions and stuff in the
Yeah.
description of this video down below. But
Get your paws on one of the books.
yeah.
Ooh.
So yeah, make sure you've entered the giveaway. Just leave us a comment and hit like, and then let's jump right into your lesson.
Let's do it.
Wonderful. So let me officially introduce you to Flowerscape. So I know we're all familiar with traditional colored pencil coloring, but when I designed Flowerscape, I wanted it to be more like a creative playground. So instead of just using colored pencils, just using watercolors, I really like the idea of using different mediums to experiment and really customize these pages. So I also wanted to show you this little flip through so you can see how there are like some gorgeous kind of 2-page spreads, also some really interesting geometric backgrounds, and then there are like smaller, more approachable vignettes, which are perfect for single day coloring projects. So without further ado, let me dive into a little lesson for you with a few different unexpected coloring book techniques. So first up, I wanted to show you one of my favorite techniques. It's also super easy. I know that it doesn't look easy, but I promise you it is. I like to call this gilding, and it looks like the page was gold foiled, but it was actually done using just a single gel pen. Jelly Roll is my gel pen of choice. I like them just because they have super full coverage, and I recommend using really any gel pen as long as it's metallic. That's how you can ensure that you have the highest level of opacity, because there's really one singular goal, and that is to trace the lines of the illustration. I mean, how much do you love a tutorial that has only one step? It's really easy to remember when there's only one thing to do. And all you have to do in order to create this gorgeous page style is to trace the lines of the illustration using a gel pen. So I like to work one section at a time. Obviously, I'm showing you just this single flower, but you can imagine how in like a larger composition, I would start with one flower and then move on to another section just to make sure that the first flower I worked on dried completely, didn't have to worry about any smudging or anything like that. And the most important thing to keep in mind while you're working on this is that you want to cover 100% of the black line work. That's how you make it look like realistic gold foiling. So what do you think? Would you give it a try? You can see that when it's in a larger composition, it's just so beautifully impressive. It's definitely something that I would frame. So before I show you the next technique, I'm going to show you my favorite flower, the chrysanthemum. It is my favorite flower to draw, and this is actually it's probably my favorite spread in the whole book. I just love the details. I love the negative space. There's just so many things you can do with it. And this next technique is something that I've shown images of before, but this is actually the first time I'm going to be doing a tutorial. And it is monochromatic coloring. So I told you we were doing some atypical coloring, and here it is. These are Koi watercolor brush markers in shades of gray. So it comes in a pack that has 6 different shades of gray. They range from cool to warm and light to dark. And to create this look, I think I used 5 of them, but we're just gonna do one that uses 3. So you can really see how this works. We're going to start with the lightest color. So this is a light cool gray. And what we're going to do is all the insides of each petal, we're going to color with little lines just at the base of the petal. So just watch me for a second and I will kind of walk you through what I'm doing. But basically, fanning out from the base of each petal, just light strokes. So imagine that there is a ribbon of highlight going around the outside of each petal and you are just lightly coloring the insides. This is also probably a great time to remind you that it doesn't have to be perfect. This is a really forgiving technique, especially the fact that we're starting with the lightest pen. So if you mess up, no big deal. You don't have to have perfect aim, but just remember that you're fanning out from the base of each petal. If it helps, go in a clockwise motion, just kind of get into your groove. Don't worry too much. And we're actually just going to build up from here. So I'm grabbing the next pen in the box. It is the light warm gray, and I'm going to follow the lines that I just drew, but I'm only going to come up about halfway from the previous lines. So take a little close look at what I'm doing here. I'm keeping fairly close to the light gray lines that I just drew, but I'm going halfway up and just adding a little extra shading, layering on top of the lightest gray. you can already see that there's some depth that's starting to form. I always think that like the first layer is the hardest in a way because after that your eyes can kind of start to adjust and you start to see what you're doing. You can start to see which petals lay on top of others. You can maybe add a little extra pop of shadow when you know that one petal is underneath the one above it. And I'll give you one guess what we're going to continue doing, working through the marker pack. You're going to be using the same layering technique. And that's something I really adore about Flowerscape, is that the paper is 160 GSM. So it's actually a really lovely, thick paper. Anything that you can layer multiple marker colors on successfully without it pilling or separating, I consider to be a great paper quality, so I'm really thrilled with that. Continue adding your shading, working into the center of the flower. I find this part to be the most forgiving part because the details are fairly small, so honestly, it doesn't actually matter as much where the shading lands. It's still gonna look really nice. So now we're going to grab the second to last brush in the pack. It's called Dark Warm Gray. I just kind of skipped ahead a few because I really only wanted to use 3 colors to show you this technique. And what you're probably starting to notice by now is that this is really good shading practice. This is like how I learned to draw, really, is just to do this with a pencil. So basically working up from light strokes to the darkest strokes. And these are really minor dark strokes that we're making. So it's just, again, at the base of the petal. You could even do like a really thin line along the base of the petal, but I'm using like tiny little hash strokes. And again, work your way into the center. The center is not as important to get right. And I cannot wait for you to actually see how 3-dimensional this ends up looking. And there's actually one more step that's really going to amplify this and make it pop off the page. So we're going back to that first, the lightest shade, and now we're working on the outside of the petal. So using the same sketchy motion that you did at the base of the petal, you're going to work your way along the outsides. And what this does is, if you notice that in the center of the petal, there's basically like a white ribbon that really makes the curve of the petal apparent. So you can see how it's starting to really have contrast with the edges of the page as well. Like the petal actually feels like it's curling. I really start to feel like an art nerd when I get to this step because I get so excited that I'm finishing it up and that it's looking so beautiful. And look at that, like it actually, like there's dimension to it. So beautiful. And just in case you forgot where we started, I really just wanted to show you this comparison so that you can see where we started, where we ended up. If you were to apply this technique to a larger spread, you can just see how strikingly cool this is. And the last technique that I wanted to show you today, I still am trying to come up with a cool name for it, but I've been calling it the patterned orb. It seems like a fitting name. It's orb shaped, it's filled with patterns. Till I come up with a better one, this is what we're stuck with. So while I will not be showing you how to do any colored pencil work today, it seemed wrong to not show you at least like what colored pencils look like in a coloring book, but we're going to be working on the left side. You can admire the colored pencils on the right while we're doing this. And I am going to use a wine glass because it's the perfect circle shape. And with a mechanical pencil, I am tracing a circle in the center of my page. I'm not doing it too lightly. I really want to be able to easily and clearly see the outlines of the circle. That's important because we're going to be working within that shape. Using the Pigma Micron 05, which is one of my favorite nib sizes, we're going to be working inside the shape of the circle only, and I'm going to draw some small 5-petal flower shapes. This is not something you have to do, but I like to customize the page a little bit more. It just makes sure that it looks like yours, that it looks a little different than anybody else's. So I'm just going to fill the negative space in between the flowers and only within the circle with these shapes. Now we're really getting in the fun stuff. So just within the bounds of the circle shape, I'm actually going to use the Pigma brush. It's the Pigma BB brush, and I'm going to start coloring in with pure black everything within the circle and around the shapes of all of the flowers and any additional pieces I've drawn. And let me actually, I'll speed this up with cinema magic. And I will let you guess in the comments what speed percentage you think I sped this up to. But I'll give you a hint that it took me probably 5 minutes to fill it in. And while we're waiting, a little story time. So I developed this technique because I know that the 2-page spreads can be a little intimidating. It's a lot to fill, and I know that not everybody has like forever time to fill in a coloring book. So creating something like within an orb shape actually makes it a lot more approachable and still looks like a finished work of art. Welcome back to regular speed. I'm going to grab my Pigment Micron 05 again, and we're going to start filling in details within the shape of the circle. So I'm going to start with these leaves. And actually, you know what? Let's speed it up again because this is going to take forever. So I'm going to start filling in these leaves with stripes. And the basic goal here is that every element within the circle should have some amount of customization, whether that's filling it with a pattern, whether that's color blocking it, whether that's adding like small pointillism details. There are no rules. But let's try out a couple different techniques. And the cool thing about this is that you can also do this with traditional color. So you could draw a circle, rectangle, even a letter. You could draw the letter outline and then fill that space within the bounds of your shape with colored pencil, with markers, with watercolors. Really any way that you fill the shape is going to look awesome. And I know you probably did not come here for a creative pep talk, but you're going to get one anyway during this sped up section. So part of the joy of coming up with these techniques was allowing myself to fail. I went through several coloring books. Like none of this just sprung out of me perfectly the first time, and I wanted to make sure that I noted that because putting too much rigidity of expectation on your creativity, it really leads to disappointment, and it can lead to you giving up. Like if something doesn't look the way you expected it to look in your head, that's all part of the process. Like that is the joy of creating. There are no boundaries unless it is within the boundaries of this circle, which you do have to respect. So now that you are feeling creatively motivated, let's jump into what I actually did here. I just filled in every single element within the boundaries of the circle with different small details. I wasn't super strict about it. I just played around, used a few different nib sizes, and then I chose to do a little bit more of like a traditional shading on the largest daisy shape. And you can see that our orb has really taken form. It's thriving. You can see all of its edges clearly, which means there is only one step left, and that is to erase our pencil marks. I'm using my very favorite eraser, the Sumo Grip, and I'm working along the edges to make sure that I pick up all of the pencil so that all that's left is our black ink detailing. And wow, 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 she's a beauty. You could do so many different things with this same basic technique. You could do multiples to fill the space, do colored pencil, you could do a cute shape like a heart. Whatever you do, I can't wait to see. Thank you so much for checking out Flowerscape with me. I hope that you love it, and I can't wait to see what you do with the pages.
Oh my God, I wanted to interrupt you like 5 times during that lesson because those are so fun. And those are things
Tell me
that
how ridiculous my nails are.
Oh my God. I actually wanted to comment on those too. They're so nice, but I would never choose that color. I'm very much a black nails person.
Okay, I normally would not either. And then it was too late. Like I put it on and I was like, oh no, it's too late. I have to stick with it, but whatever. It's like floral.
But yes, I love all of those techniques are things that I like. They're not outrageously challenging techniques, and I have all those tools, but they're things I would have never thought to do. So I love that you brought those to our attention.
Especially like the jelly roll one. Like as I was creating that, I was like, oh my gosh, like I should have been doing this my whole life on all my line work.
Yeah. Like when you held it up, it looks like it was just foiled. Like, and normally a jelly roll is not like super metallic, but somehow it looks magical on the pages. I love it.
I love it. I would definitely frame it. And I have a lot of friends that are like pregnant and my dog is yelling. I have a lot of friends that are pregnant and like putting together their nurseries. I was like, that would be so beautiful just to have like those like gold, silver, rose gold. Love it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, Maggie, thank you so much for showing us those things. I'm not going to take too
Yeah.
much more of your time, but before I let you go, I'll link to everything in the comments, but can you tell people where to find you and more importantly, where to find your book?
You can find me across the internet at Little Patterns, and you can find anything relating to the book at Color Flowerscape and colorflowerscape.com. And then the book is available everywhere books are sold. Hopefully, if it's not in your country yet, it'll come to your country soon. But you can just Google Flowerscape and you can find all of your preferred links. Amazon, Book Depository, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart. There's plenty of places to buy it.
Amazing. I love it. Okay, well, Maggie, thank you so much again. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Becca. It was so nice to connect with you.
Yeah, you too. Okay, bye.